David Sterling had built an empire from nothing. At 45 he owned hotels across 3 continents, and his name appeared regularly in business magazines. But there was something most people didn't know about him. The woman who raised him. Her name was Ruth. She was 72 now, with silver hair and hands that had worked hard all her life. Ruth had found David when he was 6 years old, abandoned at a bus station in Memphis with nothing but a torn jacket and fear in his eyes. She was working 2 jobs back then, cleaning offices at night and caring for elderly patients during the day. But when she saw that frightened little white boy sitting alone, she didn't hesitate. She took him home. She became his mother in every way that mattered. She taught him to read at her kitchen table. She worked extra shifts to buy him school supplies. She sat up with him through nightmares and fevers. She loved him completely. When David made his first million, he bought Ruth a small house near his estate. When he married Victoria 3 years ago, he insisted Ruth move into the guest house on their property. He wanted her close. He wanted to care for her the way she had cared for him. Victoria had smiled and agreed. She was 32, beautiful and polished, with blonde hair that caught the light. She came from old money and moved through David's world with practiced ease. At first she seemed kind to Ruth, polite, cordial, but over time something changed. David was often traveling for business, and when he was gone the mask slipped. That Tuesday, David's meeting in Singapore ended early. A deal closed faster than expected. He decided to surprise everyone and catch the red-eye home. He arrived at his estate just after 9 in the morning. The house was quiet. He walked through the grand foyer with its marble floors. Then he heard voices, raised voices, coming from the kitchen. He moved quietly toward the sound. What he saw made his blood run cold. Ruth was sitting in a chair. Her hands were bound behind her with rope. Her face was tight with pain and humiliation. Victoria stood over her, holding a glass of champagne in one hand. Her voice was sharp and cruel. "You actually think you belong in this house?" Victoria said, "You're nothing but the help. David might have some misguided sense of obligation to you, but I see what you really are. A charity case who overstayed her welcome." Ruth said nothing. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved in what might have been a prayer. David felt something crack open inside his chest. All the times he'd been away, all the times Victoria had assured him Ruth was fine, all the little comments he'd brushed aside, they crashed over him now. "What is this?" he said. His voice cut through the room like glass. Victoria spun around. The champagne sloshed in her glass. For a moment her face showed pure shock. Then she recovered, that practiced smile sliding into place. "David," she said, "you're home early. What are you doing to her?" David said. Each word was cold and precise. "It's not what it looks like." Victoria said quickly, "We were just having a conversation. She's tied to a chair." David said. He moved past Victoria and knelt beside Ruth. His hands shook as he worked at the ropes. "Mom," he said softly, "I'm here." Ruth opened her eyes. There were tears there, but also something else, relief. "I'm all right, baby," she whispered. "Don't you worry about me." The ropes came free. David helped Ruth stand. Her wrists were red and raw. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. Ruth hesitated. "Answer me." David said. His voice broke. "Please." "A while," Ruth said quietly. "Maybe a year. She'd be sweet when you were home. But when you'd leave—" She stopped. David looked at Victoria. She was backing toward the door now, the champagne glass forgotten on the counter. "It wasn't that bad." Victoria said. "She's exaggerating. Ting, you tied up a 72-year-old woman." David said, "You humiliated the person who raised me, the person who taught me everything about love and decency, and you did it in my house." "Our house," Victoria corrected. Her voice had an edge now. "I'm your wife, not for long." David said. The words hung in the air. Victoria's face went pale, then red. "You can't be serious," she said. "Over her—" "Yes," David said simply. "Over her, I gave you everything." Victoria said. Her voice was rising. "I left my life to be with you. And I asked you for one thing," David said, "to treat my mother with respect, to love the person who made me who I am. Instead, you tortured her." Victoria grabbed her purse from the counter. "Fine," she spat. "Keep your precious mother. I hope you're both very happy in your pathetic little fantasy." She stormed out. The sound of her heels echoed through the house. Then came the roar of her car, then silence. David turned back to Ruth. She was crying now, not from pain, from something deeper. "I'm so sorry," David said. "I should have seen it. I should have known. You were busy living your life." Ruth said, "That's what you're supposed to do, not if it means leaving you to suffer." David said he pulled out his phone and called his assistant, then his lawyer. Within an hour, a doctor arrived to examine Ruth. A therapist was scheduled. The divorce papers were already being drawn up. David learned that Victoria had been intercepting his calls to Ruth when he traveled. She'd been feeding Ruth one meal a day, making her do household tasks despite her arthritis, belittling her constantly. The cruelty had been systematic, calculated, hidden. Over the following weeks, David restructured his life. He cut his travel by 70%. He moved Ruth into the main house, into a suite with a view of the garden she loved. He hired a companion for her, someone kind who could help with daily tasks and PR. Ovid company, but mostly he was just there, present. They had breakfast together every morning. They watched old movies in the evenings. They talked about everything and nothing. One night, about a month later, they were sitting on the back patio. The sun was setting over the hills. Ruth was wrapped in a blanket, a cup of tea steaming in her hands. "You know," she said, "I never wanted your money." "I know," David said. "I just wanted you to be happy." She continued, "I thought maybe Victoria made you happy. She didn't." David said, "The only real happiness I've ever known came from you, from what you taught me about love." Ruth smiled. "Your real mama," she said. "Wherever she is, I hope she knows you turned out all right. You're my real mama." David said, "Blood doesn't make a family. Love does. And you loved me when I had nothing. When I was nothing, you were never nothing," Ruth said firmly. "You were a child who needed someone, and I needed you just as much." David thought about that, about the years of his childhood in her small apartment, the way she'd sing while cooking, the way she'd correct his homework with patient hands, the way she'd saved every school picture, every report card, every crude drawing he'd made. She had been everything. She still was. "I'm selling the company," he said. Ruth looked at him sharply. "What?" "I'm selling it," David repeated. "I've already started the process. We'll keep enough to live comfortably, more than comfortably, but I'm done chasing more. I'm done being gone. I want to be here with you for however long we have." "David," Ruth said. Her voice was thick with emotion. "You can't do that. You worked so hard. I worked hard to give you a better life." David said, "And I forgot that you already gave me the best life, right here, right now." They sat in silence as the sky deepened from orange to purple to dark blue. Somewhere in the distance a bird called, "Oh, tea." A breeze moved through the garden. And David Sterling, billionaire, builder of empires, felt truly wealthy for the first time in years. Not because of what he owned, but because of who sat beside him, the woman who had chosen him, who had loved him, who had shown him that family wasn't something you were born into. It was something you built, one day at a time, with patience and sacrifice and unconditional love. And as the stars began to appear above them, David made a silent promise to never again mistake success for significance, to never again let ambition blind him to what mattered, to honor the woman who had saved his life, not once but every single day, by being present, by being grateful, by being the son she deserved. If this story moved you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Silent Stories for more stories about love, family, and the things that truly matter in life. And leave a comment below about someone who loved you when you needed it most. Your story matters. We'd love to hear it.